Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 7 of the New Decade Challenge. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you today. It's already the 7th day, so it's been officially a week in a way, right? That we're doing this New Decade Challenge. And today's topic is called seasonal planning. So this could also be called, trimestral planning. It can be called quarterly planning. It could have many different types of names, but I decided to call it the seasonal planning. I was also going to call it a strategic planning in a way, but anyways, I ended up with really the seasonal planning one because of what I'm going to share with you today, of all the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today, and all of the information, because it's not just going to be about how to plan, your seasons, and in moments I'm going to explain what I mean by that, but it's also going to be aware of the cycles that exist in this world, that exist within us. What are the cycles that we go through as men and women? So I'm going to share all of that really with you here today. Yesterday in yesterday's class, we really dove into the year, and planning your well, not even the year, I would say more the 10 years, right? So your decade, how to really plan your decade, and how to do it by using the reverse engineering strategy. So I hope that you took the time to do that, and I hope that it helped you, and I hope that it's more clear now in terms of what you need to do every single year in order to get to where you want to get, to your final destination, to your ultimate vision for now, of course, because I can tell you by experience, when you're going to get there, you're going to be like, yes, I'm happy, this is amazing, but now I have another vision that's bigger than the one before. That's how I feel after the past 10 years, really. So now let's dive into what seasonal planning means. As I said yesterday, I wanted to do yesterday's class before because I really wanted to have you I'm sorry, to have an idea of what's going to happen in the next 10 years and what are going to be your main priorities. But now, once you have that big idea, you need to start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. What I mean by that is you need to really start going more in detail in terms of every single aspect, every single dream, every single goal, every single thing that you desire. So what I mean again is that your vision for the next 10 years, what's going to be your priority every year. So now every year, those priorities, well, how can we make them happen? It's not just by writing down on a piece of paper that next year you're going to do that, in 2022 you're going to do that, in 2023 you're going to be doing that is going to happen. No, there's certain things that you need to put into place, and that's when planning comes into place, and that's when seasonal planning comes into place. You're going to see that tomorrow and the days after, we're going to be talking and diving into planning your months, weeks, and even days. So we're going to really go into those topics. But before we get there, I really think that most people skip a big step. And that step is the seasons or the trimesters and how you can plan them. Because again, if you start with the big picture and you start kind of making it smaller and smaller, more clear and more easy to accomplish, that's when it really happens. When you take a big dream and turn it into little small tiny goals. But in order to get there, there's a process, right? There's a kind of funnel type of process, and it starts by the decade. And now we're going to the year, and in the year we have the season. So what can we do when it comes to those seasons? Okay, so like I said, I wrote seasonal planning because I really think that it's a good way to, how can I say, live your life in a way, if you go and follow the seasons of the year, because each season means something. And I think as humans, especially if you're a business, we've really detached ourselves from the natural cycles of life, and what these natural cycles truly meant in this world. We have trimestral planning, but we forget about the fact that there's a different energy and there's a different feeling to every season, right? There's certain things that you shouldn't, you're not going to go swimming in a lake in the middle of the winter, right? The same way that you're not going to go skiing in the middle of the summer. And that's because the seasons and the temperature and nature doesn't allow you to. But there's certain things also that you shouldn't be doing in your day-to-day, and certain actions that you shouldn't be taking in your day-to-day when it comes to planning for your dreams and your goals and all of that. And we forgot about that. We really completely forgot about how we used to live like that. Of course, before, the only big business that existed was agriculture, right? So most people lived from the earth. That was their business, So people had no choice but to follow the seasons. They knew that in spring was a time to really plant the seeds and everything. Then in summer they had to continue nurturing. Then came fall. Well, at the beginning of fall or towards closer to the summer, it was harvest time. Then after that, it was time to start preparing for winter. And then came winter. So there were certain things that they knew how to do, that they knew that they had to do at certain times of the year, and other things that they knew that they couldn't do at certain time of the year. Now let's go back to the business side of things before we dive into all of this. And the reason why I decided to do watching this recording, and it's no longer the month of November. It's not the end of the the end of the world. You can always choose to take the record, to do the class after in December or whatever. But ideally, if you're doing it now in November, which is when we did the live classes, the reason why I decided to do that was because I remember that the last job I ever had, I quit that job, I believe it was in 2014. That was the last time I ever worked for someone. And in that job, it was at a car dealership company. And I was taking care of the internet leads. So I was answering the emails and all of that. And I remember that all of the executives of this car dealership, they would get together every year in November to plan for the year to come. So they would all just get together in the month of November. They would travel to this place every year. It was different, but it was a beautiful place always. It was all the executives all around the world. And then they would plan. They would plan the year to come in terms of what were the marketing efforts that they were going to do, what were the promotions, what launches, what new cars were going to be launched, what new models. They knew exactly what was going to happen the next year, right? So every year in the month of November, I really always encourage my students to do the same. Because, comes the month of December and it's always hectic, right? Like I'm really looking right now at the month of December and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make it through? How am I going to survive? Because there's Christmas and there's New Year's, and for me, it's my birthday too. So, there's a million things happening at the same time in the month of December. There's holiday parties, for people who work for companies and things like that. So there's a lot of things happening, and you don't really have the time to focus on that in the month of December. You kind of just want to, drink some eggnog and, listen to Christmas movies. That's what you want to do, right? So you want to do it in the month of November instead of December, really. So that's why we're doing it now. So I really want you to take the time to do it as soon as you watch, of course, this recording, to start planning the year to come. Yesterday, like I said, we went through the 10 years, right? And what were the priorities? So here's the way that I want you to do it. I want you to take the big priority, that big obsession, as I was saying yesterday, it has to become really an obsession that you have for next year, for 2020. And I want you to think about, okay, so this big thing that I want to accomplish, how can I divide it first? And after that, you're going to see in the next classes, we're going to go more in details and we're going to divide it even more. But for now, how can I divide it in 4 parts? Let's say for me, in 2009, when I was planning my year, well, I wasn't planning it in November because I still didn't know about that, but I still took the time to plan it, I remember. And my goal for 2010, as I said yesterday, was to release my book, to launch the book. That was the thing that I had to do. So I divided that in four parts. And then, like I said, of course, after that, I went even more in detail. Then I divided by month, and then I divided by week, and then by day, and all of that. And we're going to dive into that. But for now, just in 4 parts, that dream. For me, the book, first part of the year. So the first season of the year, the first 90 days, basically, the thing that I had to do was to finish writing the book. That was the time that I needed to finish writing the book. That was the priority of that season. Then the second season was to look for an editor, or to look for someone to reread the book, to look for how I was going to, publish it, how it's going to happen, That was the second term of the year. Then the third one was to start the marketing of the book, was to start making videos, was to start sharing it with people, was to start calling schools, to go and visit. I remember it was towards the summer. It was really towards the summer, towards the month of August, when schools are starting to go back to school. Usually teachers and principals, they go back to school around the month of beginning of August, before the kids come back also. And that's apparently when you have to call them. And I was just doing it like that. And then I found out that I was actually calling at the perfect time, because after that it gets too busy, right? So you have to call them in the month of August before the students come into school. So I was calling that and scheduling, the dates to go and speak at schools. And then finally, in the last season of the year, which is harvest, right? That's when the book was released. So that was my plan for 2010. And as I said yesterday, I had other things that I was doing, obviously. I was doing a lot of different other things. I was, working on things for the schools. I was doing the videos. I was doing a lot of other things. But my main focus was about the book, and was everything that was related to the book. And I knew I had to do these things. So I want you to think about your own goal, own obsession, the thing that you want to do for the year to come, right? For 2020. If you could divide it in four parts, in the four seasons, and of course, if you could think about how it would make sense, to do that. What I mean by that is that, if let's say, I don't know, you want to start a business. Okay, you want to start a business. Maybe at the beginning of the year, which is more winter, you can be more kind of, in not hiding, but more like not out into the world yet, and you can be creating the plan, and you can be setting your goals, and you can be taking the time to develop things before you come out into the world. Then come spring, then maybe now it's time to start coming out into the world and start networking and meeting the right people and everything. Then comes summer, so summer would be about expansion, maybe it would be about marketing, and maybe it would be about even meeting more people and starting to talk about the projects and starting to do marketing. And then finally at the end of the year, you can, I don't know, launch your first program or your first product or open your store or something like that. So that's how you would want to see the year, because we all go through phases every year. The nature and the way that we are built, we're also so connected with nature. And sometimes, and I've realized that over the years, and people don't realize that when you go against the cycles of nature, of Mother Nature, it really it makes you feel more exhausted, more tired. And I've seen people, who go through like burnouts and everything. And I really think often, well, not often, but it happens a lot, that it's because they're just not following the rhythms of nature. You really have to follow the rhythms of nature. And talking about that, there's other rhythms. Now, I'm not going to dive into that because that's like a whole other course. Let's say my course, Goddess. We really talk about that. Even in my course, the School of Freedom, I'm going to be sharing more information about that actually tomorrow with you guys. But in that course, we even have a module where we talk about that, because I really believe, in connecting everything together. And I think that that's the key to success. If you just think that it's all about planning, it's not going to work in life. If you think that it's all about like, ooh, I'm going to just go with the flow, it's not going to work in life. You need to really have that balance between the two. And one thing that I want to share quickly here with you guys, and I have here the sheets and everything, is about the cycles of the months, and of the moon, because there's the sun, right? That is the calendar that goes through the calendar of the year, the 12 months and all of that, and the seasons and the equinoxes and everything. That's the sun. That's the sun calendar, the sun cycle. But then there's the moon, and every month the moon goes through the same cycle that the sun goes through, the four seasons basically, but in a different way. So let's say when it's the dark moon, it's like winter. When it's the new moon or dark moon, whatever, that's like winter. Then when it's the let's say the full moon, that's like summer. That's more like a summer vibe. Then when it's the first quarter also of the moon, that's more of like the spring. When it's the last quarter of the moon, that's more fall. So every month we also feel that cycle. So you also want to time it, but then I'm going to dive into that more in the next few days when I talk about the months and monthly planning, because when it comes to monthly planning, you want to understand that there's certain times of the month where your energy is going to be higher, and everyone's energy is going to be higher. They say the tides of the ocean are higher when it's the full moon. Well, that's the same for us. We're made of water, basically. Most of our percentage of our body is made of water. So it really affects us. So anyways, I'm not going to dive into that, but I'm going to be sharing a little bit more in the next classes, because I really think that when it comes to planning your months, you really need to pay attention to these things. And over the past 10 years, I've realized, and a lot of people tell me, they're always very surprised, because I've been doing this for 10 years, on a consistent basis and in 3 languages. So let's say these classes, a lot of people have courses online and everything, and they're going to teach one class, and then they're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, I'm done for the day. And then I do it 3 times. Like yesterday, I did it 3 times, and I had a YouTube live that I was doing, and people are like, how do you not get tired? And honestly, I really believe, because I'm no one special, really. So my only explanation would be that I really respect nature and the cycles. And that allows me to be consistent, to still work hard, but to not feel like exhausted. I'm not the type to be like exhausted or like, like feel drained or have, I've never, in the past 10 years, I've never had a burnout. Like, I've never felt even close or even a symptom of a burnout. I've never felt that, and of course, knock on wood, let's hope that is not going to happen, right? Imagine like next month, just because I'm saying it now. No, I don't think it would happen, but I really think it's because I really follow nature, and I follow those cycles. And that's why I want you to do the same thing, so that this new decade, all of your dreams and goals and desires and aspirations become true, but you also feel happy and you feel good and you feel balanced in your life. I really think that that's important. And the last thing I wanted to share with you today is about the seasons. And I talked, and the reason why I wasn't even going to share this today, but I talked about it yesterday in my YouTube live that I did on Alexandra TV. So I was like, let me share this with my people here for the New Decade Challenge. I'm not going to dive into the details again because I talk about this in my course, Goddess. We really dive into this, but I want you to, again, just write these dates and try to see, as you're planning for your year next year, what could be the things that you could be doing that are around those days. And I'm going to explain what they all mean, what were their true meanings of all of them, okay? So first, the cycle usually starts with the winter solstice, okay, on December 21st. It's the darkest day of the year. So normally on that day, it's really a day that you would like to take, or around those days, it's a day for reflection. It's not a day to be creating plans, to be taking action, to be doing a million things. That's why we're planning now and not at the end of December, right? A lot of people make the mistake of saying, I'm going to plan my years and I'm going to do my resolutions on December 31st. No, that's not how it works. You need to do it in advance. So December 21st, around those days, it's very much of a low energy. Like I said, the day is the shortest day of the year, the darkest day of the year. You really want to take it easy on that day. So when it comes to planning for next year, keep that in mind. February 2nd is a very important day. These are basically the 8 holy days of the year. It's a teaching that was forgotten for a long, long time, that is still forgotten, really, that people don't know about. And it's a very powerful teaching because it explains what these days meant to the world back then, especially to matriarchal societies. These were celebrations. These were important days. Just like us, we have Christmas and we have, Easter and we have, all of those things. Those are our important days today, but back then, for centuries, these were the days of celebration. February 2nd is Candlemas. Now, February 2nd is a day of hope, basically, because it's the day when all of a sudden the days are a little bit longer and you're starting to see more light. So it's like a reminder that we're getting close to spring, basically. So again, keep that in mind. What does that bring in terms of energy for you? When it comes to planning your year, how would you feel about Candlemas? And Candlemas means a candle is being lit, basically. So it's the beginning of something. So this could be the moment that you start, to put into place a few things. Then, of course, we have March 23rd, the spring equinox. This is, birds are singing, it's starting, everything is starting to come back to life. So you can start coming back to life too after hibernating, and after your dreams being in hibernation, this is when you can start coming back into the world. So this is the spring equinox, March 23rd. Then we have Beltane. Now, Beltane was a big celebration back then. I shared it yesterday on Alexandra TV on the YouTube live. Beltane was a sexual day, a sexual holiday. What it was is that it was a day of the year where men and women were allowed to have sexual intercourse, sexual relations with someone who wasn't their husband or wife. And there was no repercussions to that. Men and women were allowed to do it because back then we lived in a way more equilibrium, if I can say like that, world than today. Women had the same rights really as men. This was back then. And so Beltane was about that. And it was a day of fertility, basically. It was a day of fertility. So think about what fertility makes you think about and how, okay, so my dreams are fertile, so maybe I have all of my plan now and I'm ready and I'm taking action and all of that. Then comes summer solstice on June 21st. This is the longest day of the year. It's the brightest, I could say, like that day of the year. So again, think about that energy and what would you like to put, in terms of that big goal that you have for next year. What would you schedule around there? Then we have August 1st, Lammas. Lammas was the beginning of harvest season. This is when people would harvest, and this was a time again of great celebration because this is, you would know if you had a good year or not. So it was a good thing. Then after that, autumn equinox on September 23rd. Again, we are harvesting, but this is the time when it starts to decline in a way that you start to prepare for winter. You start to spend more time inside. You start to really prepare your provisions and everything. And then we have the last day, which was Hallow Mass, not Halloween, Hallow Mass, November 1st. And this was the day that you would pay homage to the ones that haven't made it, through the year. So think about how these days, these 8 holy days, which were very, very important in the world for centuries, but then religion came in and they decided to destroy these dates and change the celebration. That's, they say that Jesus Christ was born on December 21st. A lot of people say that that's the day that he was born in, but then the church wanted to change it to the 25th. And apparently, well, I'm not going to dive into now. I'm going into it. You could learn all of this in the Goddess program. Okay, we're going to release it next year. We have a whole module about this, but let's say December 21st. They say that that's what the original date when Jesus Christ was born, but then they changed it to the 25th because the 3 days before and after these days are the most powerful gateways of energy to the divine. And if people took the time to pray and meditate and do all kinds of things on these days, it was a threat for the church, right? So, and we're not going to get into all of this because that's a whole other topic that hasn't to do with the New Decade Challenge, but I wanted to share this with you today. So your homework really is very, very simple. Like I said, it's simply to take that big obsession, that big goal that you have for next year, and to divide it in 4 parts, 4 seasons, and then to really know for each part, for each trimester, for each season, what is it that you want to accomplish? What's going to be the same way that I asked you, what was going to be your priority for the next 10 years for every year? Now it's what's your priority every 3 months, should I say. So every season for next year, what is going to be that priority that you're going to have? And then tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we're going to continue with these teachings, and we're going to go into the whole, monthly planning and weekly planning, even daily planning. We're really going to dive into that because you need to know about all of those things. We have access to the Facebook group. Of course, a lot of you have been posting. I shared the resources. I'm going to share today's resource as well later on today. And I know that some of you have asked some questions, but there's not a lot of questions. So I'm going to wait. Keep on asking. I think I'm going to put a post on the Facebook group saying that, whoever has a question, write it here. And like that, I'll take the time to answer it. And probably on the last day of this week, I'll take a lot of time to really answer, make sure all of your questions are answered. All right. So thank you so very much for being here today. It was a pleasure. Day 7 of the New Decade Challenge. I will be seeing you tomorrow at the same time. And that is that for today. So don't forget to do your little homework. So take care. Bye bye.